Hi, everybody. It's Erin Scott here. How are you doing? So, I'm recording this on Friday, May 21st. This is your art channeling intuitive self select that we're pulling forward for essentially this next week, starting on Monday, the 24th. But this, can activate now. Essentially, when you watch it, this can be activated naturally because you're intuitively pulling into it when you find it. So it's correct for you. But we're focusing in on the energetics of this next week. So we're looking here at an image. This is an image that I took yesterday. We've had some beautiful weather, and this is some of the new blooms. You can see some of the new leaf coming. Some trees are really fully leafed, some are still leafing. You can see the clouds and the sky and the blue. It's just beautiful. So as you're looking at this image, go ahead and tune into either 1, 2, or 3. 1, 2, or 3. And really try to define one of them, okay? Because that's going to that's going to allow you to trust your inner prompting for your own guidance, which is directing you to your own processes this week of growth and what needs to be attended to. Okay, beauties. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up number 1. So if you need more time to really tune into choice 1, choice 2, or choice 3, go ahead and please place this video on pause now so that you can really tune in and feel it before you access the answer or the image that came through. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and reveal number 1. Okay, now for those of you that selected number 1, you can see first of all that, the image is kind of down and dirty. I'm using markers the last couple of weeks. And, but there's benefit to doing that. There's different pros and cons to using different modes of bringing forward the imagery, but the marker is beneficial in that it can allow a quick channeling or a very quick image to come through. Okay, so I want to let you know what it started with here. So let me pull up my arrow. So here, the first imagery were these kind of squiggly lines over here with this sweep, with this kind of directive, these energies directed here, which is leaning what is like a pine tree to the side, to the right, going down into the ground with the root system going to the right, then down, then to the right again. So there's something here that we'll talk about. But first, let's talk about the original imagery that came through, the first forms that came through. For those of you that selected number 1, it might be that this week you are reacting to something that you hear. I think that there's something that you hear. There's either an argument, chaos, activity, there's some sort of noise or sound or conversation that you're responding to because it's activating you and it feels like it's being directed at you. So I think that there's going to be a response mechanism that comes about via something that you hear or a conversation that you're in. It might involve screaming or elevated voice. So there might be an argument here, and it seems to go a little bit back and forth. It might feel a bit chaotic. Maybe it feels eruptive, like out of the blue. That being said, keep in mind that first of all, I'm seeing a process that emerges for a lot of you, for those of you who are very present moment, very mindful and responsible for your own response mechanisms and responsible for your own perception filters. There can be great growth with whatever occurs this week. Some conversation that you're a part of, some argument that you're a part of, some argument that you're in the presence of, you are responding to it, and it's catalyzing a deep dive of some level. You're going within, and there's some sort of trail that you're finding, the taproot of your response. You're going down, right, down, and right. So what does that mean? Well, I don't really know. There's something about the right that diving to the right. Now, if we're looking at the human system, okay, because you can see that the tree here is leaning right, and that the course of finding the root system, literally the root of the response, is also right. Do you understand? So you're responding to whatever's happening: chaos, argument, conflict, loudness, noise, frequency, the energy of your environment or the person or the relationship. And there's a response mechanism happening. And you can see that the externalized form is reflecting the inner root system. But there's a way by which you're able to follow the trail and access that taproot, understand what the core of your own response mechanism is. In other words, there could very easily be something that occurs in your life this week where it's reminding you, you're connecting the dots about how it reminds you of your upbringing, how it reminds you of conversation patterns, or yelling or aggression that was coming at you via parental figures when you were growing up, for example. Okay. But the thing about this is you following the root system, you accessing your own recognition of what the root of your response is, allows you to be responsible for it. So, in other words, this is the beginning of becoming anew, where you get to not believe the story of, let's say, victim of the abuse or victim always of the pattern of argument. There is a possibility for you to awaken to your own stance, to your own reality, and to making a different choice, making different decisions with regards to your context, your environment, your relationships, right? And how you respond. So, what is it exactly that's triggering you? What is the wound signature at the root? Now, what I was going to say is that there's a movement to the right, and the root has the movement to the right. If we're looking at the body system, the right side of the body reflects the left brain, meaning that the operating system of the right side of the body is organized by the left brain, and vice versa. Same with the right brain, left body. So there might be something here about the analytical aspect of the mind that tends to spin on details. And so there's a story in your mind that is creating an emotional signature. It's tied to a memory that you have in your consciousness, in your narrative bubble, in your blueprint. According to your natal chart, this creates your story for your life. Within your own blueprint, there are um, lessons that you're learning. They are encoded. You're here to have certain experiences so that you evolve the patterning. There is a recognition of patterning here, your own response mechanism, your own trigger points and woundings. And it has something to do with, it's connected to how you overthink things. You identify too tightly to identifying a condition, a situation, a conversation, a person in a certain way that is not necessarily the truth, because there's multiple facets of understanding reality. So it's a matter of you almost identifying how your mind is creating the story about what you're experiencing, and this creates the certain response mechanism. So I realize that's a lot, but this could be an amazing week for some of you that are really responsible for your own mind, for your own psyche, for your own stories, for your own patterns, and really owning it. Because ultimately, everybody, it's not about the other person, it's not about the condition. How are you responding to it? You are to. You are responsible to evolve how you respond. You are responsible to evolve your own patternings and your own wounds into not only healing them, which doesn't mean them going away, it just means you understanding them from a different perspective, but really organizing a new alignment of wholeness of who you are and how you operate in this world. So, the interesting thing here is that the arrow is pointing to the right. And what ended up next, the next image that came forward was the cloud, right? And the cloud can indicate, and this was a white cloud. In my mind, this was a white cloud in a clear sky. So this is about some sort of higher vision, being able to become the witness of your past, of your patterns, being able to detach from believing that you are your thoughts or that you are your past, because the truth is you're not. You are a bubble of consciousness. You are a fractal of consciousness. You are an entity who is based upon a level of consciousness. That's what you are inherently. The forms that your life takes is here to evolve, but that takes the evolution of consciousness first. You can't change the form without changing the consciousness. And I actually say that with a caveat, because you can, because that's another aspect of the feedback loop, but that's another topic for another story. But here, when you get to the root of what it's all about, you can see from a higher perspective. So there's clear seeing here. What came next was this igloo, an igloo. So my goodness, I mean, I don't really know what the igloo is talking about. There seems to be something here with protection, right? The igloo is frozen water. So this is about something being protected. Now, because the arrow is pointing this way underneath the igloo, and because the cloud of clarity is above the igloo, what I am assessing from this, and I would invite all of you to assess yourself about what this means for you. But the igloo, because it's frozen water, and because it's also kind of an indigenous structure, right? There's something here about foundations, because it's a home, it's a house, it's a structure, it's a foundation of dwelling. This represents the fourth house. This represents your IC. It represents your childhood. So there's something here potentially about a cold childhood. It could be that the feeling, the response mechanism that you might be feeling this week has to do with something with regards to being blamed or shamed, or your feelings not mattering. And so it might be that there's this recognition of an emotionally cold or hyper protective maternal figure or a paternal figure that you had growing up. And there might be some recognition about how you self protect, how you create, because of the fear of being shamed or blamed or argued at or having conflict with. Whenever you come out with the truth of who you are met with some sort of oppositional force. It will create a pattern within yourself where you will exacerbate. The older we get, sometimes we get tighter and tighter into the pattern versus evolving it, right? But this is about emotional coldness and a hyper self-protective way of operating. This means that you can wall off. These are, these kind of bricks of ice here. So, sweeties, in what way do you wall yourself off? In regards to, you do it to protect yourself, but in what way does that block you off from all other aspects of joy and flow and life and truth of you, right? So there's a way by which you are here to navigate the evolution of reactivity. You're not here to be in fear of whatever it is. You're here to be in flow. And ultimately, that flow obligates an openness. So there's some sort of clarity that you get about your own walling off or protective mechanisms, emotional walls that you create and build in order to keep yourself emotionally safe. But what does that mean anyway? So there's big processes of clarity about your own foundations, childhood, mother, father, but also your own emotional response mechanisms, right? So something will occur to catalyze inner clarity, which is excellent. Okay, beauties. Let's go to number 2. If you selected number 2, okay, now this is a terrible image, I have to say. Let me center it here. Okay, this is a terrible image. It came out really crappy, but let me explain to you what it is. Okay, the first image that came through was this cat. Now, it's not just a typical cat face, although, it might somewhat look like it. But what I want to point out about cat is that number one, cat has a very wide face. Okay. Cat also has a very grumpy look, okay? So cat is a bit grumpy. Cat isn't amused. Cat has this wide splayed out. You can see kind of the rim of fur, like a lion's face really. But the face itself, when I was drawing it, the indication was wide, fat face. Now, a couple of things to say about it. Cat can represent the feminine. Cat can represent uh, the feminine because it indicates a more internal, intuitive operating system that has a sense of wildness to it, that has a sense of unpredictability to it. That responds to the environment, that is more of this responsive mechanism. So when I was drawing cat, I was seeing woman, okay? Now, although all of you might have your own intuitive interpretation of cat, I want you to hear me out with regards to what came through, because what came through was very clear for me. Okay, so it might land for you as well as your own interpretation. But what I get here with cat, and especially with the widened face, because the face is splaying out, even though it doesn't necessarily look like it here. You can also see kind of a human mouth here with cat. But the wide face, the face is our facade. The face is our facade, literally, okay? So there's something here about the presentation of the facade widening. So why would a facade widen? Why would we present ourselves in a certain way? Why would we need to put on a mask? This even looks like a mask. But why would we need to do that? Why would humans need to put on a mask? Well, we do it when we feel we have to do it in order to self-protect, survive, be safe. That we would protect ourselves by putting on a facade when we don't feel that the truth of how we feel, the truth of our needs, the truth of what we seek is invited or allowed in our context or our environment. So there's something here about an artificial facade, but very grumpy and not pleased. So putting on the facade in the face of the reality, not being pleased, happy, satisfied, in flow, enjoy. Okay. So this is important to note. Now, what came up next to this cat was this was supposed to be a man slumped in a recliner. What it ended up looking like was something like an older person in a recliner. That's not what this was supposed to be. So take it with a grain of salt, okay? This was supposed to be a man slumped in the recliner watching not just a television, but an old-fashioned television. So there's meaning to that. This particular TV has an oval or a circular screen. It has the old-fashioned rabbit ears. This is definitively an old television. Now, why is that meaningful in this image? Well, for me, it's meaningful because it's evoking an old pattern. In other words, whoever of you picked this particular image for this week, there's something here about not aligning with your truth, putting on a face in order to deal with your relationship, with your marriage, with your family, with your circumstances, whoever you're with. So for some of you, this isn't about a marital partner. For some of you, this is just about a business partner or your boss or your clients or whoever it is that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't have to be the love relationship. This can be relationships. So think about this as kind of a global archetypal narrative that's activated for you to wake up to, because there's a need for alignment here. Stop putting on the face. Stop hiding the disgruntled nature of the reality. Start addressing it, right? Because this is talking about an old pattern This particular relationship dynamic is distracted by the television. This particular person is not seeing you. This particular person is not paying attention to you. And that's the disgruntled nature of this animal. So the narrative for your week, the growth process for your week, the recognition of your week ahead, everybody. For those of you that selected number 2, this is to allow yourself to live your truth, to stop putting up with old patterns of being denied, ignored, not heard, not respected, not listened to. And you have to understand, ultimately, what they're doing to you that's triggering you is what you're doing to yourself. And it's time to evolve it. Because if the trigger of being ignored is really activated for you, that means that your higher is asking you to align your life in order to evolve your sense of self-love, your sense and reality of self-worth. This is about you honoring your needs, honoring your value. And it's not about looking for the other person to do it. That's not what this story is about. What your story is about is waking up and attending to your own needs. So stop looking over here, feeling disgruntled that they're ignoring you. Make the appropriate shift in your reality. Decide differently. First, attend to your own needs, attend to your own passions, your own desires. For those of you that have not seen the astrology, there's 2 astrology videos for this week ahead that I've already put out. Jupiter, on the Jupiter 2.5-month transit, you have to watch that. The other thing, critically important, especially for this narrative, for those of you that are watching this video, watch the Gemini month ahead process, because that cycle is completely aligned for you with regards to this week ahead. Okay, so wake up. It's time for you to be in your natural aligned joy. Okay, now my work is natural alignment, and there's lots to say about it. But for those of you that are unaware, that do not understand their blueprint, their life, the naturally encoded life path that's inherent in your natal chart's blueprint, okay? You must understand that. Everybody needs to understand their natural blueprint, because if we don't, we're living blind. We don't understand. We feel that the patterns are random, or that they're just that somehow they're discombobulated or disconnected or not aligned with the clear truth of who you are. The natal blueprint in-depth analysis gives you clarity about what your stories are, what your patterns are, and what must be awoken to and evolved. So it's a critical foundational element. Everybody needs to know their blueprint, okay? So this is a big week. Old patterns of being ignored are showing you how you ignore yourself. Ultimately, that's the bigger story there. So you're here to decide differently, choose differently, attend and focus your energy, attention differently. Stop looking over here and wanting them to react to you differently. You are to react to you differently. Period. Full stop. That's it. That's the core. Okay. Now let's go to number 3. Okay, beauties. Now this one is interesting too. Really interesting. Let me go ahead and get this centered. Okay. Now, the first thing that came through here was the tornado. Okay, so we have the tornado coming down to a base point, and then the energetic from the base point swept up to this platform. You know, you could look at it like a flying carpet, but it's just this floating platform up here with this woman looking from the platform down at the root of the tornado. Okay, the next thing that came was the kite, the next thing, the 3 balloons. So the tornado for me is quite interesting because it again, kind of like what we started to see in choice number 1, this choice, if you selected number 3 for your week ahead, there is something stirring this week. There is something that you're noticing, but you're witnessing it. not just witnessing it, but witnessing the root cause of the uproar. So there's a higher level of wisdom that you're accessing in order to view reality from a higher perspective. It's very, very good. The tornado can talk about, I mean, any variety of things. It could be that the tornado for you is in your own direct experience this week. So there could be some uproar in your family dynamics. There could be some stirring within your friend groups. There could be some whirling and change happening, maybe abrupt and big change happening with your work, right? So there can be some sort of sandstorm that creates some chaos in your life this week. But there's, excuse me, there's an ability for you inherently this week to look at the root cause. In other words, whatever is emerging, the big change, the big shuffle, the big argument, again, this could be some sort of chaos that involves some sort of conflict. Whether it's out in the world or whether it's in your direct environment, you're able to see the root cause of it. You're able to see beneath the facade of it or at the origination point of it. Now, why is this so valuable? Why is this inherently the key? Well, because you're able to detach from it. You don't have to be involved in the chaos. You don't have to be swept up in the storm. The changes of the world and of life and our communities and our families and our home and our work, we can be detached from it. Not in an apathetic way, but in a healthful way that allows you to understand that life has its processes and we are currently generally, collectively moving through a chaos process. Humanity is shifting. The earth is shifting. Consciousness is shifting. And it's happening rapidly. And it's creating a level at which our foundations are no longer secure. Period. We're going to be seeking security, but at the same time, humans are adaptable inherently, and we need to become adaptable because a lot in the next several years is going to be completely upended. Okay. So humans and their ability and their capability to develop more adaptability and resilience, natural resilience, that's the name of the game. So this week, something's happening where you're able to simply relax and breathe and be in your own spiritual orientation. The beautiful thing about this image of the woman is that number one, she has a smile on her face, but it's not, I mean, what I would say, because I felt it when I was drawing it, it's hard to see in the image, but the smile is not forced. The smile is just natural. It's a natural smile. And the natural smile is easeful. There's a level of relaxation here. However, she's also engaged in the looking. In other words, she's participating. She's mindfully participating in the higher view and the ability to see the root, the understanding of what's underneath, what's manifesting. Okay, so she's participating actively, yet she's calm and grounded. Grounded, even though she's up high. So there's a lot of paradox here, but there's a lot of grounded reality here. It's very, very good. Now, the kite certainly is representing a level of innocence, childhood, freedom, fun, summer, joy. Flying a kite, I have memories, back in the early 70s, I have memories of my dad and I going out and flying kites. Every summer for many summers we did that, okay? And he would build them and we would go out and fly them. So the kite can represent some level of freedom, flight. Here she is floating up above the situation, able to see from that higher perspective. But this is like a joyful, free, flowing, childlike, innocent viewpoint and perspective. Yeah, it's like joyful, it's innocent, it's pure. There's a purity to it, right? And there's almost a level of fun with it. And I don't say fun to be like she's looking at this sadistically, because I don't think that's what it is. I don't think if you selected number 3, you're looking at what's happening sadistically. I think you're focused on the root, which is quite good. And there's this ability to access your original self, your childlike, innocent, pure self. Okay. Now, what came here, and able to fly with the winds. See, that's the other thing here. If you think about the tornado is winds. It's air that's circulating fast and furious. The kite is going with the flow of the winds. And that's actually what I see here as well. And you can see that the tail of the kite is essentially also near the root system of the tornado. So the same wind that creates the dramatic and sometimes very destructive tornado is the same wind that's carrying that kite. I think that that's actually the big message here. This is about going with the flow of the winds. The tides of our lives are changing. Go with the flow. Learn to go with the flow. The three balloons. Now, three can indicate mind, body, spirit. Three can indicate um, it can indicate the mind. It can indicate, in fact, it can definitely indicate the mind. And it can certainly indicate a level of like teamwork and cooperation integrated within our thinking. Creativity and communication is also indicated with number three. But the balloons are also flying and floating just like the kite. So the balloons also can represent celebration, right? Balloons for a birthday party, balloons for some sort of celebration, an anniversary. But there's a mind celebration that's also going with the flow. You might be feeling quite pleased that you're able to go with the flow in a new way. In a new way, but it's really the original way. Okay. So I have to tell you, everybody, these three messages for this week are fascinating. All right. For those of you interested in getting your natal analysis, I would recommend it. Okay. So put it on your list to get. If you can't get it right away, put it on your list. What I'd recommend too is if you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, you will get notified of sales that come up in the future. So that might be of interest to some of you as well. But to order your natal analysis or to get that at some point sooner rather than later, especially in this cycle of 2021, might be a thing that resonates for some of you. The other thing, a reminder that the 2021 analysis to understand your current evolutionary process that's playing out, that's on sale. Okay. So for those of you interested, you can find the sale link below this video. All right, everybody, I'm sending you much love for your week ahead. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.